Welcome to part 6 of building our Ember CRM application. In the last episode, we set up the company's new controller and route and got that hooked up and working. There is one little tweak that I noticed that's bugging me, so I wanted to fix that real quick. And that is, if you go to a new company, go to add a new company, you'll notice that the company model gets added here, but since it doesn't have a name, nothing gets displayed in here, and it's just kind of awkward. So that bugs me. So I'm going to go back into the template and fix that. So within our each handlebars helper in the company's template, we'll add an if statement. If name, and that just checks, do we have a name? And if so, only then do we want to display that link. So save that, and then we'll go and refresh, and hopefully that'll look a little bit better. Okay, yeah, so now we're in the company's new route. We don't have an empty button right here, but as soon as we start typing, it pops up. Perfect, exactly what we want. Okay, on to the next bit. So rather than to display these alerts and just to revert back to is editing, it would be nice to relay some information in a better format to the user. And I want to use an Ember mixin to accomplish that. So to do that, and an Ember mixin is a set of functionality that you can apply to your other Ember objects. So we're going to create an app messageable, and we're going to extend Ember mixin, and you'll notice that they work just almost exactly the same as controllers. Alright, so we have this Ember mixin, and the first thing that happens whenever we use it is Ember calls this init method. So let's initialize this, and within here we want to make sure Ember sets it up, so we call the Ember super method. And then in our messageable mixin, we want to have two types of messages: success messages and error messages. So let's first set success messages to an empty array, and then do the same thing for error messages. So as soon as this gets initialized, we'll have two empty arrays. Alright, and now we want to be able to send actions to this mixin, and you do that the same way as you do in your controllers. You create an actions hash. And then in here, we want to have 5 different methods. The first one being add success message, and we'll pass it a message, and then we'll get our array, and then we'll use Ember's push object method on its arrays, and we use that method so that our templates will get notified. We'll add the message there. And then we want to be able to dismiss success messages. So we'll grab this array and just clear it. And we'll do the same thing for error messages. Add error message. And dismiss error message. And then finally we want to be able to dismiss them all. And we'll just grab these 2 lines here. Okay. That looks good. And now to use those in our controllers, we can go to our controllers, and then pass them in as arguments. And you can use as many mixins as you like. Just put them here, comma delimited. All right, so now that our company controller is messageable, rather than just switch back to editing mode, we can say send. We want to send an action, and we want to add success message. And then we'll say save successful. Okay, and then for our errors, we want to be a little bit more specific. So we can add, since this is the fail callback, it gets past the payload that it receives from our request. And so in my failures, I'm sending something that looks kind of like let's see here, errors, and then if I had an error on the name, bad company name, can't start with letter A, or something crazy like that. So that's what my response is, and I'm returning a HTTP status code of 422. Okay, so with that being said, we can check, make sure we have some response JSON by doing this. If we have it, and we have errors, and these are errors that I'm returning from my API, and we can save our errors equals data response errors, and then if we have errors and they're not empty, we can use jQuery to loop through that hash, pass it a callback, error group, and that's just my terminology that I am making up as I go. So the error group would be that name attribute on the object, and then it contains an array of all of the error messages for that attribute. So we can loop through that error group, and pass it a callback, and then get each individual error. And then we'll finally send add error message. And do that. But you know, we could create, because we're going to use this same functionality here, so we could create a mixin for saving. So let's do that. Let's call it app savable ember mixin. And then rather than mixing our messageable mixin to the controller, we can mix it into another mixin. So let's mix it in here, since we know that our savable mixin will be making use of it. And then we're going to implement an actions hash. And then let's go back here and yank it out of here. App. And so since we know that this mixin is going to be mixed into a controller, this is going to refer to the controller that it's mixed into. So all of this stuff should still work. Cross your fingers. Okay, so now that we have, let me spell this right. Now that we have that defined, we can go back to our controller, and rather than mix in messageable, we can mix in savable, and then remove this save method because we're mixing that in. And then let's mix it into here. Okay. That looks good. Now let's create a view to where we can see these errors. Okay. So let me just grab this real quick. And I'm using Bootstrap again if you haven't noticed. So I'll go here and then put this here. And then since this is a partial view, you make sure it's underscored. And then, so I have all the different types of Bootstrap alerts defined here, but since we're only going to use success and errors, let's make this a little cleaner. And then let's go through this. Okay, so you'll remember in our messageable mixin, we have success messages and error messages that are mixed into the controller. So if we use this partial in one of our templates, we're going to say if we have success messages, let's display this div. And then within here, we're going to have a little X symbol to dismiss, and then we're going to send the dismiss success messages action, and then after that we're going to display all of the messages. So we're going to iterate through all of the success messages and just print them out, and this refers to the current message in the iteration. And we're doing the exact same thing for error messages. You'll notice that the only difference is the CSS class and the variables being referenced. So instead of success messages, we're checking error messages, and we're also going to dismiss error messages. So if we save that and then go put this in our company edit view somewhere, let's put it here. No, companies edit, where are we at? Yeah, here, okay. So let's stick it in here and see how that looks. So we're going to use a partial, and then we're going to say we want the message board is what I'm calling it. And you don't use the underscore whenever you're referencing it. Alright. Let me put this in quotes. Alright, and let's see if that works and if we have any errors. Alright, refresh. And we have some errors. Ember app. Mix and extend. I'm not extending. I need to create. So let's go back here and create. And same with savable. No errors, that's good. So let's go to Acme Corp. Let's edit Acme Corp. Incorporated. Save it. Issues a put request. And then we switched out of the edit view, so let me go back and add that. Added it in the wrong place. So rather than the edit view, we want to add it to the show partial. Let's try there. or you know what? Let's not automatically switch out of editing, and let's display it there, because we're also going to see it there by adding the yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. Now we'll put it there. Okay, so we're going to put it in the edit mode, in the edit partial, and then get this out of here. And what I just removed is the is editing and setting that to false. So let's just yank that, refresh it. And so whenever the save comes back, it's not going to switch to non-edit mode. So let's change it back. Save. And there we go. We have our save successful. So now, let me show you it. Let me check to see if our error messages work. So let me pull up my API, and then we'll go to my code I got prepared, and then I'm going to return a 422 with these errors in the namespace. So let me save that and then go back here, and then, oh yeah, and then since we're calling this dismiss, we're sending this dismiss success messages action with this button. We click that, and that removes them all from the controller mixin. So that's working correctly. So now let's change this back, save it, and we're going to get an error. And there we go. We have our error messages being displayed in their appropriate alert box. So we can dismiss that, and we're good. Okay, so that was a long video, but we accomplished a heck of a lot. And in the next video, we'll cover how to set all this up with the people, and so that should go a lot quicker. So stay tuned to see that.